Good morning, everybody. Good morning to you. So, hey, as you can see, I've got my new little condenser microphone hooked up, my little headphones, and put those up. And to be honest, I've got kind of a different show today. I'm going to take a different approach. I've had this channel now for, I'm creeping up on a year, creeping up on 25,000 views. Handsome guy? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know, but what I do know is that when I am trying to inform the public of something that I care about, which is that you guys are being told the truth, I run into a lot of flack from a lot of people in a lot of different places. And it's just kind of crazy to me. Let me double check this sound because it's the first time I'm really using this. Check, check, check. Yeah, it works. Okay. So it's kind of crazy to me that when I am trying to be truthful and honest as I am, that I run into all these hurdles from people that are not always truthful and honest. And it's way out because I try to do the right thing and I run into all this resistance, and to be super clear, resistance from people that are tier 1 operators. What do you mean tier 1 operators? Green Berets, Delta, Navy SEALs, MARSOC Marines. These are all people, the Navy SOCOM people I've emailed before, all because when I went to Mexico and earned my uniform, there are certain things that are readily apparent to me that would not be readily apparent to you being a normal American or even a military American. So when I come back home and I see that there's some guy by the name of Ed Calderon, my channel's not about shitting on Ed. And forgive me if it seemed a little looped. I had some technical things getting this thing dialed in. So I've already started saying this, and if I repeat myself, forgive me. I want you to know that I am legitimate. I'm not always a well-liked guy. I don't have a huge circle of friends, but I am honest. I work hard. And the people that do like me or do call me friends have been my friends for 30 years or longer. So, and I keep my circle small, to be super honest. So that being said, I try to do the right thing in my affairs because the way that you do one thing is the way that you do everything. I've been calling out Ed for a long time, going on 8, 9 years. It's been a long time. And I've asked him some very simple questions. And I've gone down the list of everybody. Today it's going to be Byron Rogers, for example. I've emailed him and sent him messages. And the more I look into everything, the more that I see that these people are grifters. They're there just to make money. And really, I guess that's kind of the title of the show today, is making money with your government training. The government of Mexico spent about 600,000 pesos training me, more or less. That was kind of the figure I got when I was in Mexico. And I know that for a fact that the government in the United States spends tons of money training people to a very high level, including presumably Byron Rogers, Travis Haley, and others. And my problem isn't with them. My problem is with the fact that if what I'm telling you is correct about Ed, that Ed has fabricated, embellished a lot of things and may not be who he says he is, or if he is CIA, that a lot of people are going to have a lot of egg on their face and they don't want to admit it because they should have caught this a long time ago, and they didn't. Ed's got a couple little training pictures that he's put out. I've put out a $1,000 reward and even thought about giving away my motorcycle, which is parked right there, to try to get this guy to come on a show with me, and he won't do it. And, it begs the question, why are people so afraid of talking to me? Gafe 423 and Ed Calderon just 3 months ago put out more BS, and I got to call bullshit on it. They'll put out more bullshit. Post Ed will go on Julian Dory, but he won't touch this white boy right here because what? I've got tattoos and not a pretty grill. It'll look great compared to me if what he's telling is true. But if he's not, he'll look pretty stupid. And so will a lot of people that made a lot of money. They have this thing called Protector Symposium by Byron Rogers and others. It's $195 a pop. I guess they're on Protector Symposium 6.0 at this point. This is something they've done with some frequency. There's different instructors in there. For example, there was a guy by the name of Instructor Zero. I guess he's really good with a firearm. I think he spent a year in the Italian military. Is that correct? But there are other people also that have military training. I don't know how adept they are, but I have to take them at their word that they're for real. But at least the American guys, you can kind of get a feel for whether or not they're adequate, whether they're competent in their different areas of expertise. But when I get someone that's a law enforcement officer that's in one of my other videos calling me up and being like, hey, Dave, you know, I went to one of Ed's classes and he was telling us to tear off windshield wipers off of cars to pick locks. I'm just going to go with this. And you know what? We will make this towards Ed Calderon and pulling the wool over the eyes of the entire Tier 1 military community and federal law enforcement agents in the United States, because none of you guys took the time to figure out what Ed's maternal last name is, whether or not he's actually driving down Mexican highways doing these high-speed things. He's talking about Lezola Perez, again, like that's his Lieutenant Colonel, Teniente Coronel, talking about how he's all high speed with him when Lezola Perez himself has been accused of torturing people, was only in charge of the state police for like a year and had to bail. Before that was in charge of the state police training academy. Ed's talking about, oh, do you know how to use a grenade launcher? Like they're going to give you one of those and turn you loose on society without making sure you've been trained in it. There's so many little things Ed said over the year. And I hate doing this, but I have to do it because nobody else would know. Because none of you guys have actually gone to Mexico and worked for the Mexican government being an American. And I have. I'm the only person. When I was there, there was one Polish guy that was training Mexican Policía Federal Preventiva, which is reactionary police. Think Gopes and all of this in Mexico City. There was a Colombian Special Forces guy by the name of John that I worked with personally in GATPE, which is Grupo Aeromóvil de Táctica de la Policía Estatal. So just think reactionary police, which I myself am a part of, Mexican SWAT. And he wound up working for the other side for a bad agency, and to the best of my knowledge is still sitting in a Mexican prison cell. And there was myself. So 3 of us in the entire country that I'm aware of. One from Colombia, one from Poland, and yours truly. So, you know, I'm in a unique position to call Ed out. Because I was sitting there filling out all the tramites, all the documents that you need to enter this thing. And I see I'm going on 8 minutes. You know what? I'm going to make it a long form video. If people want to listen to it, great. And if they don't, that's okay too. There are several people on Borderland Beat, Reddit, and other places that have called Ed out routinely throughout the years. And ironically, you know, I had to wonder whether or not Ed was like a CIA plant or something like that, because the government does, and Joe Rogan's had it on his thing before, where you'll see all the different news stations literally reading from a script. The government does control what we ingest as far as media goes, as far as news. I'm a bit of a quandary when it comes to government and stuff like that. I don't cling to my life. I don't go and do like the orthodox things, and I couldn't. I learned early on that I couldn't even depend on my own mother. She gave me away the day I was born. I didn't have a name for 2 years. My birth certificate is a report of live birth, and then I get what's called a supplemental name report 2 years later. I learned early on you got to make your own way in life. Nobody, never once suckled from my mom's breast, not once. All my half brothers and sisters have. They all went home from the hospital, and And my biological father was a Vietnam tunnel rat, but also he had some issues that I've talked about on live TV before. I didn't have parents that were there to coddle me, and I was kicked out at 16 years old and lived in a 1974 Firebird behind my first job. So, I've learned to get by and do my own thing for a long time, man. And I come from LA. It's not like a super nice place, and not from rich suburbia LA, but LA with gangs and drugs and the whole thing. And there was these 3 black guys that were on a bus when I was in junior high, and they used to play the shell game. And their ethnicity isn't important, but I'm saying that because it's just the way that it was. I would see these guys every single day. I should call this episode Ed and His Shell Game, because that's kind of what it is. And these 3 guys would be on the bus, and 2 of them would sit there and act like they were buddies, and the third one would act like that he didn't know the other 2, and he would come up and he would bet $20, and those guys would let him win, you know, moving the shell, and it was a little sponge ball. And so he would sit there, and all 3 of them would sit there and play, and then the guy would let him win, guessing what cup the sponge ball was under. And I would see these guys every day going to school. He'd let the guy win, and then they'd sucker somebody in that didn't know him, and they'd get that guy, because when they'd go to pick up the cup, they'd scoop the sponge ball right here in their little pinky, and it's not there. And then they would trick these guys and scam them out of lots of money. And those people taught me most of what you need to learn about life, is that a lot of times things are not as they appear. They're not what they seem to be. So, yeah, it's still recording. So, when I see stuff like Ed, and when I grow up in a community that's got a lot of drugs in it, and I see a lot of things from a lot of people, I know most of the time that there's something going on, particularly when money's involved. Ed's talking about that too. Lezola Perez taught him to not watch where the money goes, but watch which hand's spending the money, because the other hand's going to be hidden. He said that on one of his things the other day. I'm not charging any money for anything that I've ever learned. I've had 2 opportunities to do it, ironically, and I'm not going to say the company's name. I just didn't go that way. Both of them have successful companies. Ironically, they're both out of New Mexico also. I didn't go that way, and I haven't ever spoke on training in any certain way. And if I'm carrying weapons and have all of the photos and videos that I have working in Mexico in a very hotly contested zone where the Cartel de Jalisco de Nueva Generación is right now, who I have directly worked against, I can put my money where my mouth is that I have received a certain amount of training, and I'm to a certain level competent in what I was doing, because I was there for years. I'm not Jason Bourne. I'm not saying I'm more badass than anyone in the Special Forces community. I'm just saying that I feel competent that when I pick up a weapon and go to work, that I'm going to be successful. In New Mexico, I don't know what they trained Ed. I don't know who trained Ed. I know that I was trained by Gafes, not dissimilar to Jonathan Campos, and that they taught us that we will only ever come in second place once. So you can take that to mean whatever you want it to mean, but you're only going to come in second place once. And that's the rules to the entire Mexican drug war in a nutshell. You are game on 24 hours a day in a way that's, they got that saying, you're never off duty. When you live in a war zone and everybody's fair game, including your children and your loved ones and yourself, whether you're on duty or not, whether you're armed or not, which is going to lead me into my next point, you are game on all the time. So a lot of people will be critical of me when I'm telling somebody about why Ed will not divulge his full name. His first name, his middle name, his paternal last name, and his maternal last name. Why is that important, Dave? It's important because in Mexico, every single thing that you do, if you want to, try to send Western Union or MoneyGram to Mexico. I do it all the time. If you are the recipient, you are required to have a first name, a middle name, a last name, and a second last name. Everything you do in Mexico is geared that way because that's the way their naming system works. You have a first name, a second name. You might not have a second name, but you are definitely going to have a first last name, which is coming from your father, and a second last name, which is coming from, it's the paternal last name of your mother. Potentially, you could mix it up to where there's different combinations of it. If it's the maternal last name of your father, and that's the first, or the maternal last name of your mother, that's the second. But usually it's the paternal last name of your father and the paternal last name of your mother, which becomes your first paternal last name, your second maternal last name, and that's the way that it works. Ed or Lalo or Eduardo or Edwin or whatever his name is, we don't know if it's first name, second name, or his middle name, and he's got some other completely different first name, and whether Calderon is his paternal last name, his maternal last name, we don't know who this guy is. And what's more is the Special Forces community doesn't know who he is either. What do you mean? I got Jeff Bramstead, a Navy SEAL, on phone telling me to ask Ed which Navy SEAL signed Ed's training certificate when he jumped out of Skydive San Diego. Nobody knows. He won't post a picture of it. And when I'm calling him out, I get blocked off of Instagram from his thing. Hey, why are you shitting on Ed? You know, are you guys shitting on Tim Kennedy when he's making the Green Berets look bad? Sheriff of Baghdad punching them up? I would love to have this discussion with Ed in person, but he ducks and weaves like more than Floyd Mayweather does. Every time I bring this up. I've got Gafe 423, and Gafe 423 and Ed Calderon both have a picture with a guy that they purport to be a hitman, or was a hitman, for one of the main, most violent cartels in Mexico, and they're standing on either side of them. Clowns to the left, me jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. That's Ed. I'm going to post that picture and stick it right in here. So Dave, why are you such an asshole? Why are you such a jerk? Well, I grew up in LA, and like New York, I've lived in New York too. We're not overly friendly. That's what happens when you live in a big city, so sometimes my social skills, they suffer. And I apologize to anyone that's got their name attached to me. You know, Mark Gainey's sitting right where I'm at right now, and he's doing videos with me, and when I'm putting these videos out, I think, you know, maybe Mark doesn't want to post his stuff because I'm a little bit too aggressive. I'm a little too direct. Story of my life. I'm not too aggressive and I'm not too direct. I'm just for real and to the point. Ed has never fully divulged to the public in any meaningful way what his first name is, his second name is, his maternal name, or his paternal last name, and his maternal last name. First name, middle name, paternal last name, maternal last name. So we can actually button down who this guy is and where he's at. I've got pictures of myself standing right next to Mexican senators, national senators, dude. Right next to them. And governors. Ed's talking about doing executive protection. I know a little bit about that too. I know a lot about it. Ed's talking about having been sent to be trained by the Navy SEALs. And there is some cross-border training that goes on. However, having direct access to one of the most elite special warfare groups in the entire world, you know, I kind of doubt that. And when I'm asking Travis Haley, who's a MARSOC Marine, and Camp Pendleton's right across the base too, you know, so it's not far, right across the border. You know, there could be some credibility there, but I get crickets from Travis Haley when I ask him a super simple question, validating who I am. I sent Travis Haley all of my data, exactly where I worked, when I worked, for who. So if I had something to hide, I wouldn't be sitting here talking this level of smack. So Ed and Gafe apparently was maybe, I guess somewhere I heard that he was threatened, or the Mexican military tried to kill him. And so Ed and Gafe 423 are both concerned with security, but they'll put their faces all over YouTube. Hey Dave, how come you're not concerned with security? I'm going to tell you why. When you look like I look and you speak like I speak and you go to Mexico, and I'm not talking like border Mexico, I'm talking deep in the heart of Cartel de Jalisco, Nueva Generación territory, which previously was being fought, and still is being fought over by Cartel de Sinaloa, the Gulf Cartel, and Zetas, and that's who I was working against directly, you already know you're probably going to die. Which is something I made peace with a long time ago. And my wife, she's a reporter. So she's got her lid screwed on tight too. She's more courageous than I am. So when I'm sitting here talking this level of smack, it's because Ed decided one day he was going to go talk to Dan Calderon, or not Dan Calderon, Dan Crenshaw, one of our politicians. And when I was in Mexico, I stayed all the way out of Mexican politics because I was an adopted Mexican. Ed's an adopted American. He's going to come over here and start talking to our politicians. I took issue with that. I've known Ed's been full of it for a long time, and I've challenged him for years. I've challenged him. The first time I challenged Ed was on a government computer in Mexico, hitting him up, and he sends me this chicken shit picture of the academy over in Baja California like he's out on some high-speed run. I defy Ed to post a single fucking picture, and I'm going to leave it like that because that's exactly the way it is, where he's in the back of the truck with Mexican military, and I will post mine where I'm standing directly behind a Mexican general, two-bird general. In Mexico, you got 3 different types of generals. Regularly, you got General de Brigada, or you got your brigade general, General de Brigada, General de División, and then you got a 4-eagle general, that's Secretary of National Defense. So, General de Brigadier, when you're doing this, my general was a powerful general, and I've actually guarded the tarmac for General Cienfuegos, which is the Secretary of National Defense. I've been around, dude. I've been exposed to a lot of things. I have been on federal flights where several cartel bosses are being transported. So I know some things that some of the Americans wouldn't. And when I start calling this guy out, I start getting all this flack from people that take Ed's classes or people that are co-instructors with Ed, or just a lot of people. And they're like, oh, you're shitting on Ed. You don't know what you're talking about. No, I do know what I'm talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. And I've known what I'm talking about for a long time. And not only do I know what I'm talking about, I have an explicit right, more than any of you, to speak to what Ed and Gaffe are putting out, because I was in Mexico and had that flag right there. Went to work every single day for years not knowing whether my own brothers would whack me, because that happens, and not knowing whether the cartel would whack me or someone in my family, because that happens too. And so when you guys sit here and will go after whatever, the Byron, all the Navy SEALs that have lied, the Delta and Green Berets and Rangers that have lied, but when I'm sitting here calling out one of my guys that's come to my country, that's sitting here lying stuff up, you guys are going to sit here and not call him out, but you're going to call me out because you guys didn't take the time to vet him. And you don't want to look like an idiot. Yeah, well, I'm sorry that I have to be put in this position and make even less friends, fewer friends than I should have or that I deserve, but I got to do it because it's the right thing to do. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put $1,000 of my money up to anybody who at Tordislung, TORDISLUNG @gmail.com can email me and prove, you got to prove it, but I'll give it to you. I'm a man of my word. $1,000 to prove Ed Calderon's first name, middle name, paternal last name, and maternal last name. I want all 4 so I can track down exactly who this fool is, where he's been, and what he's done in Mexico, because his English is perfect. It's the best English in Mexico I've ever heard in my entire life. And you know, Gaffe 423, about him, a lot of people don't know it, but one day I was sitting on top of the cage in the back of my truck. I'm a platoon sniper. My responsibility is to repel any sign of aggression that comes towards our truck or our convoy or anything that we might be guarding. I am the first person to react. And as such, I'm sitting up on top of that cage. It's raining outside. You're out on the cage. Hot outside. You're out of the cage. So cold that your fingers are getting frostbite because the desert gets that cold, and you got to keep one hand on your trigger and the other underneath your plate carrier because your fingers are getting frozen. Screw you, you're not in the truck, you're outside. That was my job for years. So as such, one day when we're driving down the highway, I'm sitting up on top of the cage. My passport goes flying out, dude. I can't get it because we're with my general. I know exactly what the hell I'm talking about when I say all of this stuff that I'm talking about because I've gone through all of it. Rain hitting and pelting your eyes when you're flying down the freeway at 120, 130 kilometers an hour or faster, 140, feels like nails are hitting your eyes. I've gone through all of this, so I'm completely within my right to call Ed out and be like, yo, what's up? You know, getting back to Gafe being in Jalisco, I've been to Jalisco more times than I can count. More times than I can count to the quartel, Gafe 423. I would not doubt at all, Gafe 423, if you and I were both at the same base, either in Jamay or the quartel in Jalisco, in Guadalajara, because they're two different places, two different. Am I lying, Gafe? You and I very well may have been on the same military base at the same time, dude. And I'm completely for real. People think, you know, hey, Dave, you're too crazy. You know what? I wouldn't say that I'm crazy. I'm very lucid. I'm completely sober. I don't take any mind-altering chemicals. I don't smoke. The only drug I take is caffeine right here in my coffee. And I even hold that to a low roar. I'll drink it when I'm on my videos, but that's about it. I stay physically fit. I'm not as physically fit as I wanted to be because I work 2 jobs. And so when you see the Mark Gagnon videos come out, you're going to see that there's a little bit of pudge. You know, I am not as put together as I was when I got out of basic training. Especially when I'm doubling over and it's making all my fat stick out or a little bit of flab that I got. But I do get out and I go run. I go to the gym. I work out. I go surf. I paddleboard. I try to do everything that I got to do to be a well-rounded, well-balanced person. And I am submissive to my God, Jesus Christ. I am required to do everything that he says. So when I'm sitting here asking for Ed's stuff, putting my money on my mouth, where my mouth is, asking for Ed's full name so we can identify him, we can eat the crow that the Special Forces community has to eat because Ed is not who he says. He's got all this stuff. You know, this white boy right here, and I hate the term white boy because I'm all man, but this white boy right here, I have more pictures of Ed or more pictures of me with high level, national level, Mexican, state level Mexican politicians than Ed does when Ed says that he's the chief of a Mexican governor's security, and I gotta assume that it's Osuna Milan. I go through all of the security detail pictures of Osuna Milan that I can find of him in public, and I don't see Ed anywhere, dude. So yeah, I'm talking shit. I'm talking major shit. I'm talking shit to the entire Special Forces community. That's Byron, I've contacted you. Sean, I've contacted you. Mike Ritland, I've contacted you, and it's always fallen on deaf ears. And shame on you guys, because you guys are supposed to be better than me. If I was full of shit and I was wrong, you guys ought to give me a voice and let me make a fool of myself briefly and just sulk off into the distance, mistaken and found out to be mistaken. If I'm such a fool, why does Ed got to block me on all of his Instagram stuff? Gafe 423. I've been in WhatsApp communication with Elizabeth Vargas, his production manager, who is currently sick. I had actually yesterday wrote another message in Spanish because they were supposed to get back to me 2 days ago. She was driving into the office, and I'm going to screenshot it and put it right here with his number. I've got emails from him too. I've screenshot and put those and everything. I have nothing to hide. She gets to the office. She sees my message. I don't know what was going on, but they don't get back to me. Maybe they're trying to figure out what to do with me because I am a dark horse, an unexpected variable that happened to, I am an anomaly that showed up. This thing's getting to a half hour, but I'm going to let it go because I've got some things to say. Year after year after year, I've said things about Ed on Reddit and other places and other forums, and other people have too, and every single time it's always assumed that I wouldn't really go down there and do it. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't have any experience. No, Fulio. I have all the experience. All of it. I come home every day knowing that there might be a special visitor waiting for me because they didn't like something I said about my work. And I'm prepared for that too. Not that I go out and looking for problems and stuff, but I'm competent and I make sure that I take care of business and I'm responsible in all the ways that I need to be responsible. Right? I'm not Billy Badass. I'm just honest, and I have a God that protects me all the time. You know, so I've got to point. So Ed and Gafe being in Jalisco, ironically, that's right where the embassy is at, Guadalajara. And there are a lot of American operatives and government personnel that work there. So I wouldn't be surprised if Gafe has something to do with the American people too. And here's why. It's amazing to me that Gafe and Ed are so concerned about their security that they won't release their names, and that Gafe is going to continue wearing a balaclava, a ski mask every time he's doing a video. And you can look it up. Gafe 423. Gafe 423. Gafe 423. Covering his face up, but they're both blowing themselves all over YouTube and doing seminars. Something else. Ed, how are you doing seminars all over Mexico and the United States? I've asked this several times. How are you doing seminars back and forth and crossing the border back and forth when you're in charge of security, which is presumably what you were doing at the end of your career? Is Governor Osuna or whoever going to sit there and allow you to take all this time off and go all over the place because you're some top level international CIA spook? Or seasoned spook as it would be in Mexico? No. You know, so there's just so much stuff about stuff that doesn't wash. You saying that they're playing music to drown out torture. Huh. It's Mexico. There are numerous instances of people being tortured throughout Mexico in broad daylight or in the middle of the night, hung from bridges. None of them are playing Guns N' Roses' Sweet Child of Mine. You sit there and say that none of us that have Mexican uniforms that were committing social suicide because no one wants to be with us, but you were married to an American chick, so you say. And I've got several brothers that had numerous girlfriends whenever they wanted because you got a government paying job. And not to speak ill of women, I'm just going to say that a lot of women are interested in security. And if you have a government paying job, there's not going to be any shortage of people that are going to be looking forward to that, right? So this, everything about you is just one lie after another. Una mentira tras otra, tras otra, tras otra. And then when I try to be man to man, mano a mano to you, I get crickets from you and have for years. You let me talk to you one time on a cell phone when I got back to the United States and you were someplace in Modesto or some other thing. You didn't want to answer my questions then and you don't want to answer them now. But now you've talked to my politicians, so now I'm not going to drop it. Anyone that wants to say that, hey, I'm shitting on Ed, I'm not shitting on Ed any more than Don Shipley's shitting on fake Navy SEALs. And if any one of you want to say something about it to my face, let me know where and when, and I will show up and we can record it. You can ask me whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. You can try to be violent to me if you can want. But one thing that you're not going to do is you're not going to get me to sing a different tune because what I say is dictated by whether it's true or not. Right? And if you think I like blasting my face all over the place, having been quiet for years and not had a channel, not gone into security and training people when I've had the opportunity and can prove it, you're crazy. I don't want to put my business all out there. I haven't done it, but now I need to. I am obligated to put my business out there at this point. And so in for a penny, in for a pound. I'm all in, Foolio. I am all in. So, you know, Ed being tied to the Special Forces community, Ed being tied to federal agencies that don't really have the power. You know, how is a federal agency going to really vet a government that they say is corrupt? How is a federal agency, be it civil or military, really going to vet whether or not this individual himself is corrupt if it's not just the institution? And then on top of that, they're going to share with him top level CIA training? That doesn't make any sense. What makes more sense is that certain Navy SEALs would maybe go out, seek out Libre knife fighting training, which is also right there in San Diego. And that way Ed comes in, and then Ed makes some friends with other agencies in Mexico and is training them. But he won't tell me what special forces Scott Babin himself were really training. There's just so much bullshit that this guy has pumped out over the years that now I have to fucking say something. Don't want to cuss. I'm not going to get emotional, but it's just like, when is someone going to stop and be like, whoa, minimum, we need to know what agency Ed worked for, where and when. He needs to prove it with some pictures and some credentials. Which Master Chief signed off on Ed's so-called Navy SEAL jump certificate at Skydive San Diego that is owned by Jeff Bramstedt and previously was owned by another SEAL, because I've done all my homework. And when are people going to just be like, whoa, maybe Dave has a point, because he's got all the photos, he's got the credentials, he's got video of him working in Mexico on Mexican highways in several Mexican states, where I can pinpoint exactly where we were at when we were getting tacos de birria, bringing back 60 million pesos worth of weapons. The Fat Boys thing where I'm sitting there next to a truck, we were going to pick up a new armored truck in that one. That's a different thing. So, I mean, all of this stuff can be proven. It's exactly right there. There's a business name right there that you can go on Google Earth and see exactly where I'm at. And for putting all this out, I am risking making enemies with very powerful people that are beyond the law. And I don't give a good damn, because I need to make sure that I tell the truth, because I want us to know. All the guys that are going to the John Wick training ceremonies because they want to be more badass, the symposium stuff. Hey, man, I don't have anything against people making an honest living, and I don't have anything against every human on the planet being more capable of defending themselves and others. I have zero against that. I think that it's great, and I encourage every single person to go out and seek out this training. What I also encourage is making sure that when someone says there's something, that they are what they are. So, hey, and I'm going to continue putting this out, and it's not smart of me to do it because there's OPSEC and PERSEC, but I'm going to put this out. I am going to publish my phone number in this video, my business phone that I have for this channel. And, you know, people might be able to mistreat that or misuse it or not, but I'm going to put it out there because I want Ed Calderon's first name, last name, first paternal name, last maternal name, so we can pinpoint exactly who this guy says he is. I have put out to Dominic Izzo on his channel, and we're going to schedule a podcast. And I've also reached out to Shots Fired podcast, Kyle Schoberg and Mike Redlich, to do something with them. They haven't answered me back yet. Dominic Izzo has. And I'm doing that for a number of reasons. If I'm reaching out directly to American law enforcement, which Dominic Izzo was, and which Kyle Schoberg still currently is, I am 1,000% above board, legal, do everything correctly, and work my ass off to be successful to take care of myself and my wife and my family. And I truck my balls around in a wheelbarrow because when I went to Mexico, I knew what I was signing up for then, and I know what I'm signing up for now. So I'm not going to be cowed in any way. All of the trolls got a hold of me the other night. My wife this, I'm gay that. There's nothing that you're going to do to dissuade me from doing what I think is the correct thing, which is a far better improvement and an amalgamation of a man that I am today than I was when I was younger, when I made some mistakes. Not who I am now. I have been locked up and incarcerated with murderers in LA, in the gang capital of the world. And you can bet that I've been down several roads, my friend. So Ed, if you think you're going to get under my skin or have your cheerleaders go around, Gafe, same thing. Elizabeth is out sick for the next couple days. You do want to talk about me. You don't want to talk about me. You don't want to talk about me. Cartel members that might be watching this, I'll meet you too, because I went to go meet you in aggression on the other side of the camp. And someday one of you guys might get a hold of me and put an end to me. That might happen. But what you're not going to do, you're not going to send me someplace that I'm not already going. I love my wife with my whole heart and my whole soul, man. And so sometimes my wife and I have talked about my life and that maybe I should write a book about it or make a movie. And it's not me. As far as I'm concerned, my life's just not all that interesting. I've been there for all of it, but other people seem to think that it is. So I may well turn this into a business or whatever. It's my life. I've been in the Bering Sea. I've been in Russia. I've had Muslims joking about cutting off my head, driving through a prison that's on both sides of the road in Mount Shikan in Bashkortostan, Strelitamac, Russia, going towards Ufa. I've been to Salavat. I've been to all over the world, dude. And so if I decide to make a video or something out of my story, my childhood, all of it, drugs in LA, I've definitely earned that right. So I'm not going to be belittled or told that I can't do something. And here's one other thing. I'm going to end the video with this, because a lot of times people, they tell me, hey, Dave, yo, Dave. They tell me, hey, Dave, how did you get your job in Mexico? My company, I was the manager for a third-tier supplier to Boeing and Airbus, decided that they were going to do what's called a low-cost company. They were going to send all of my guys, which at the time was between 180 and 220 people, out of the country and give those jobs to foreigners. And I had an issue with it, and I told the management that I was not going to help that. I would design all the manufacturing processes and whatnot. I would do that because I was being paid to do that, but I did not at all support sending our jobs or my guys' jobs out of the country. And it wasn't a racist thing, because most of my people that worked for me at the time were of Mexican descent, but they weren't Mexicans. They were Americans, and they were my guys. And when I said that, I created a big wedge between myself and my company. My ex-wife had also left my daughter in Russia at the time and came back to live in the United States without her. And that has been the case the entire time I was in Mexico, which was for a decade. And it's the case to this day. To this day, my ex lives in the United States and my daughter lives in Russia. And it kills me inside. So I had this perfect storm of my ex came back to the United States. I was training at Gokorchevichians in judo that night when I got a phone call. I've talked about this on another video. My truth is not going to change, like Ed's. And I go down to Mayor Tom Bradley Airport to go pick up my ex. And my daughter's not there. And instantly there's going to be problems, as you can imagine, because it's not a suitcase you forgot to put on the plane. And I've tried everything from emptying out my 401k to bribe her to get my daughter back. She would not do it. And to this day, even after me being in Mexico and all that stuff, my ex lives in this country. My daughter lives in Russia. And at the time, I took about a year to try to get her or fool her to bring my daughter back, and she would not do it. She wanted to use my daughter as a pawn to control me. And at the time, I was making a little over $100,000 a year with bonuses and whatnot. And she thought she was going to just take me to town on child support and alimony court. And I decided to quit my job and go make $600 a month working for the Mexican government. She didn't think I would really do it. When I was crossing the border, that she was laughing at me talking about they were going to cut off my head, and I told them with them it'll be, and I laughed too and told them with them it'll be about 60 to 90 seconds. With you it was 10 years. That's how long I was married to my ex. So, being that as it may, before I had actually crossed the border, I had written the PGR, the Procuraduría General de la República, now it's the Fiscalía, and they wrote me back and they told me not in this moment. I'd asked them for a job. That I know how to fire. I've shot since I was 4 years old. I'm adept with weapons. I speak all these languages. Я говорю по-русски тоже. I speak everything. Yo sí puedo hablar en español si quieres. So I told them I know all this stuff, and it took them about 6 months to write me back, and they told me, Mr. Frank, at this moment, in this moment, you cannot work for us. And I took that to be a very positive message because it was not a no. It was at this moment, in this moment in time. So I thought, great. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to take the opportunity because the first team that went down to Mexico to implement that thing failed, predictably. The place where they were sending that thing, it had the municipal police station shot up for about 2 hours straight. So I'd gotten out of hot water for not going with human resources, telling them that I was afraid of the cartel, which was a complete lie. And when the first team failed and they came back to me and they said, will you please go? We know you're not afraid of the cartel. We'll pay you about $5,000 a month bonus to go down there and get this $60 million factory running. So I did. I went down there. And every day after work, people asked me how I got my job. As soon as I got off work that day at about 5 o'clock, 1,700 hours, I was knocking on all of the doors that I had to knock on, the PGR, the Fiscalía, federal level, state level, everything that I could do. Federal de Caminos, I went everywhere trying to get a job. And that's the difference between me and a lot of YouTube people, is a lot of YouTube people will watch videos vicariously, trying to live vicariously through other people, and that's not me. I was in the Bering Sea, knocking on doors in Seattle, at Trident Seafoods, Aleutian Spray Fisheries, Blue North Fisheries. I've been out on the Blue Attu, which is a vessel for the Blue North that had a crack in the hull. I've been to Sandpoint, Alaska. I've been everywhere. And the reason why is because I, unlike a lot of people out there that are cheerleaders for Ed, I'm not waiting for $195 Symposium, Protector Symposium 4.0. I'm not waiting for one of these Protector Symposium 4.0 paying $195 for some other person to help make me a more dangerous person. When you're doing pent jacks a lot and you grab the person by their head in the front on their face and pulling, using the knife as a fulcrum, or whether you're going this way with it, all your Libre bullshit. If you're in a fucking knife fight, you already fucked up. Ha! Your planning fucking sucks. You know, I just got so much stuff that I could say. So I went down there and I got a job. And my interview was basically to fight 3 of my general's guys, man. I went in there with a suit and tie. I finally got someone to give me a chance, unlike my own government, which I went down 7 times to enlist and came 3 questions away from acing the ASVAB, and then it got down to captain's waivers, and I couldn't get a captain to get me a waiver, even though I never did anything. That attempted murder we were talking about, I didn't do it. I was there when it happened. So I'm not some morally decrepit, deficient guy. I grew up in a turbulent household, to say the least, with a stepdad that thought it would be funny to pin me down, punch me so hard for eating a piece of chocolate the size of a quarter it almost split my whole, cut through my whole mouth. And I figured out when you got a 200-pound guy on you and you're 14 years old, you cover up like this, let him punch you, get all tired, tire himself up, then reach up and honk his beak, because that was my childhood, man. You know what, I was sitting here recording this whole thing, and then there was some alert that went out that was my childhood. So anyways, I grew up fighting grown men from the time I was a kid. My little brothers are gargantuan. My biological dad comes up to about here on me, was a Vietnam tunnel rat. My dad that raised me was a combat Marine that almost got court-martialed because he didn't want to come back after his third tour in Vietnam. And then we got my stepdads that came in and my mom's boyfriends, one of whom was attached to a major club and wanted to introduce us to, we'll just say, more than adult substances. And I had to get through all of that, and I did. And I'm not going to apologize to anybody. I've made the mistakes I've made in life. I'm faithful to my wife. I work hard for every single thing that I have, and I'm not going to apologize to anybody for calling Ed and his bullshit out and his cheerleaders out on them failing to prove that Ed's done what he's done. So in wrapping up this video, because the last one got interrupted and the microphone shut off on my computer, as you can see, it's not working back there. I'm going to say what I have to say because it's my channel and I'm in a position to do it and I earned that uniform. I have every right to say everything that the Sheriff of Baghdad has to say about Green Berets, that Don Shipley has to say about Navy SEALs or other people. And every time, at every turn, when I've come to one of you two guys for help, Sean Ryan, all of you, Joe Rogan, fellow martial artist, every time I've come to one of you guys for help, to even talk to you about it or have a voice and be like, hey, what's the deal with this? I have been shunned at every turn, at every corner, and so now I got to do my own thing. And even if it costs me the Camp Ganyan videos or whatever, like I said earlier, I'm going to do it because it's the right thing to do. So, you know, I hope God is blessing you in your life. All of you, even Ed. And I'm going to put it out there, my phone number in this video. I'm going to put my phone number out. I'm going to put it across the whole bottom. I'm going to put my email across the whole bottom, and I'm offering $1,000 for anybody, anywhere, in any country that has Ed's first name, his middle name, his paternal last name, and his maternal last name. Because if I can't get Ed to get on and do a podcast with me when he can stand right next to Sicarios on Gafe 423, or when he can sit there and hang out with Tijuana drug dealers that have admitted Sicario friends in Tijuana where he says that he worked, then I'm going to do it my own way. I'm going to put my own money out to go look for information on him. And we'll just flip the script. So, hey, I hope that this is interesting to you. Hopefully something will happen with the Dominic Izzo thing. I'm in communication with Ian Bick right now again, too. I'm in communication. You know, I don't know if these people are like sending money to these podcasts telling them to shut up and not air my episodes. But I'm sure as hell going to air my episodes on my stupid little channel. And I'm an honorable guy. Maybe I'm not the most personable person, but I'm honorable. And I'm not a scumbag, and I do the right thing. And I put my own money where my mouth is to make the world a better place, to make sure your kids don't have drugs. Or to make sure that women aren't sold into sex trafficking or whatever. Like watching all the people come across the bridge in Tijuana when I live there to go take advantage of women whose unfortunately lot in life puts them into the position to where in order to get something to eat, they have to lay under some sweaty... Fucking breaks my heart, dude. Man, that just fucks me up inside because I watched it happen for a long time. And then Zona de Tolerante to watch Johnny Mitchell, Tommy G, and all these other people come over and grift. And I like the product that they put out. Well, Tommy G, Johnny Mitchell, I've hit you up too, man. You guys all make money, but when I got something to say about it that's real, it calls into question people that you've had on your channel. I don't think Ed's been on Tommy G, but he's been with Johnny Mitchell, I'm pretty sure. I have to double check that. But when I'm definitely for real, you'll have some drug dealer in Tijuana on your show before you'll have a Mexican agent that was authorized to work throughout and did work throughout the entire republic, man, of Mexico. And I'm not worth a phone call. So, you know, that's really, And I'm not even going to get into the Katarina Schultz Vargas thing. There's so much stuff to get into. Lex Fridman, all of it. So, hey, sorry the microphone messed up. I got to get better at coordinating this stuff with this and my Mac and my phone and putting it all together. But at the same time, you know, you want to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. So, hey, that's enough out of me for right now. Cheers. I hope you liked the video. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. I'm not asking for your money. I'm not operating a Patreon because I don't want any of your money like that. I want a little bit of your time and attention, and that's it. And I want you to have a great life, man. For real.